Welcome to the Stay True Sounds and Defected workshop in South Africa. I'm hoping there will be other editions at some point somewhere else.
Definitely.
And we are blessed to be in the presence of Stay True label owner Kid Fonque and the legendary Simon Danmo of Defected, of course. And really, I believe in stories. I believe in learning from many people's stories. And I feel like when you can kind of tell how people have done what they did, it becomes easier to kind of work it out in your mind that you can also be doing something similar. So we are very blessed to be in the presence of these two gentlemen who will be learning about their journeys, different journeys in the music industry. And we start with Kid Fonque. Let's give a round of applause to Kid Fonque. Man, it's so much to talk about. And I think the most recent thing is the 5FM exit.
Yes.
For Selective Stars.
Yes.
Firstly, how does it feel? I mean, like you've done 6 years on the show and you've done so well with the show, you know. How does it feel now that you have left?
It's been very emotional. It wasn't a decision that I really wanted to take. As you know, Selective Stars is kind of an institution in South Africa for underground music. And even when I started at 5FM, it was a very big risk for 5 to kind of go this route and let me do me 100%, which I was very firm about when they wanted me to take over. It was essentially euphonic slot, which was very commercial. And then they asked me to come, and I had to double check with them whether they had asked the right person, because I was like completely the opposite of euphonic. And they wanted a change of music policy, and they wanted me to they wanted to see how I would do. And over the past 6 years, I've been able to do some beautiful things on radio and expose South Africa to some incredible underground artists, not only through my label, but from many labels and across South Africa, and including a lot of underground music from overseas too. So I've really used the platform to be quite self-indulgent, and it's really worked. To answer your question, it's emotional. I still, as you started with that question, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. It is emotional, but the thing is, I do have bigger things happening in my life at the moment, which includes a lot of work with Stay True Sounds. Stay True Sounds really is my baby. If you had to consider how much time I spend putting the show together, you would understand why it doesn't necessarily make sense and I need to refocus. For me to put a whole 3-hour Selective Style show together takes over a day. And that's consuming music, that's preparing, that's listening, that's deciding who the next feature is going to be, that's the interview, and you come in 3 hours, it's over. You know, you present it and it's done. So it was a difficult decision, but I know that it's the right one. And I'm glad that I left when I did, which was on a high. You know, I did the last show on Sunday, and it really was a beautiful thing. My wife she did the outro, which I wasn't expecting. She did like a shout out on air and dropped the mic, and that was me finished. But it's been a beautiful journey, and I'm so pleased that I was able to do that, to be able to be on national radio for 6 years and showcase the music I love. But now it's time for the next step, you know?
Yeah, man. I think you've done extremely well, as I said. But I'm also... you started by saying, you know, initially the slot was euphonic slot, and which was a very commercial, up-tempo type of vibe, and you brought this different vibe to the show, you know. And with being different also comes a lot of criticism, and especially from the people who are within what you do, you know. What are some of the things that you had to go through, especially from people criticizing your way of doing the show?
It was difficult at the beginning because I think there was an expectation. A lot of people didn't know who I was because I suppose the music that was playing at that time slot was a lot broader and accepted by many people, whereas I'm quite niche. There was a lot of criticism, which I struggled with at the beginning. but I'm quite set in my ways, and I have a very clear vision as to what I want to do, and I just put my head down and kept going. But I think the music I was playing has never been played on national radio or radio in like at all in South Africa. I mean, I'm brought up on BBC radio. I was brought up listening to Giles and Benji B. And if you know those guys, they play some of the most extreme like styles of music. And it's kind of accepted. Whereas in this country, we've kind of kept it relatively safe on the airwaves. And I wanted to break that mold and give people more of a platform, because there is more than just the top 10 or the top 20. And it was hard I could see, you know, if there's someone that's never heard this sort of music and you put it on and you watch them, it's a difficult thing for them to take in. Yeah. And I could literally feel it sometimes. I was pushing the envelope on air. And in doing that, I kind of created my own tribe. And a lot of people really liked the experience of turning on their radio and listening or hearing something they've never heard before or can't even access, at least for a while. We created the Unshazamables on Selective Stars. Yeah. And I think that, you know, I consistently just kept my head down and try to stay away from the noise. And I think that goes with many things in life. There's always going to be the noise, and everyone's got an opinion. But I think if you have a vision and you put your head down, you can create something really beautiful.
But just lastly, with the Selective Stars, I'm interested to find out what kind of informed you that you were on the right track, you know, because you obviously in the SABC, it's a super commercial type of environment.
It's a government institution.
It's a government institution, right? And here you are, and whatever criticisms that are coming. What are some of the evidence that kind of told you that you were on the right track, and you know you're not kicked out?
So what I decided to do with the show from the beginning was just jump on Twitter. And no one was doing that because everyone was playing music that people knew. So they didn't really have to tell. Are we there? Okay. They didn't have to tell people that they were playing a song because they already knew the song. I was playing music that people did not know. So I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to tell people so that they know for sure what is playing is by tweeting and creating, again, a tribe, which I did through Twitter. And what I would do would be like, opening track is something you've never heard before, some artist, and this is the name of the song. Welcome to the show. And then I would constantly tweet and retweet people engaging with the show. And that was my definite way of finding out that the show it has a listenership. And people are genuinely interested because of the traffic I would create on Twitter around the show. And if I wasn't jumping on Twitter, I wouldn't actually know, because when you're in the studio, you're just in a bubble. And no one's there on the side, so there's no like audience in front of us today going, oh, well done, or I like this, or I don't. Whereas Twitter, you're reaching someone sitting in a room, living hundreds of kilometers away, listening to your song, and he can see what you've played, he's listening to it, and he can react to it, and I can engage with him. And although the criticism was minor, I could see it, but the overall response to the show on Twitter was overwhelming. I mean, we were getting, at the beginning, I think the first 3 years, we were trending in the top 5 against like some heavyweight TV shows and things that were happening on Sundays with music that had never been heard before. So that was the encouragement, that was the drive, that was the motivation to keep going.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to understand what is it about you that gives you this passion for finding unknown artists, you know, because you did it with Selective Stars, but you've been constantly doing it with Stay True Sounds, with your label, and so many artists have came through the label. Why do something like that where you could easily go and get a license from a well-known producer or artist?
I'm like a child of discovering music. My dad always used to play music in the house, and me and him were constantly on the hunt for the newest thing. And it wasn't just like this style of music or that style of music. It was just everything. We were just into music. And most of my weekends were spent going to CD stores. We used to go to Rosebank CD warehouse. They used to bring in all the imported CDs, and it was this constant like try and dig and find something new and exciting that would excite me. And then I discovered Ninja Tune growing up, and there was just this constant craving to learn and understand music. And then when I discovered Giles Peterson on Radio 1, that was the penny for me. I was like, okay, this guy ticks all the boxes of things that I would love to see myself doing. And the radio show and Stay True Sounds were essentially birthed at the same time. It's as I exited Soul Candy, and I was label manager at Soul Candy for many years, and I was signing records to pay the bills. So it was a very different experience for me because it wasn't necessarily music that I was passionate about, but I knew that we had to sign those records and we had to put that sort of music out because we had to get it on radio. And then when I left Soul Candy and Selective Stars opened, I was like, okay, now I could do me. That's all I ever wanted to do was just do me. And then I started Stay True Sounds, and it was exactly the same thing. It was like, I want to put out the music that I want to put out, and I feel that needs representation. And I feel in South Africa, there's not enough record labels like there are in Europe or in the States, where there's hundreds of independent record labels doing really cool and interesting things. Whereas in South Africa, at the moment, I know Soul Candy and House Africa were kind of part of the crew that were putting out really cool and interesting stuff. At the moment, there's just majors. And the majors are only looking for stuff that's going to play drive time radio. There's no really cool labels that are putting out music that guys are making from their souls and their hearts, and they're not sitting there going like, is this song going to make me $1 million and be number one, and what is the video going to look like? So I think I've really tapped into that audience of finding producers that make music because it's just their calling. And you can hear it in the productions that I sign. And the label is also 6 years young now. And we've done some incredible things with Stay True Sounds. And, from its infancy, from having one follower to now, I think we've got like 40, 50,000 followers on Facebook. And we do streams, and we hosted a stage at Spring Fiesta, which was a real wake-up call for me as to where the label stands, in South Africa. But the two, the radio show and the label, both really kind of grew and were both at the same time.
Yeah, man. I'm not being controversial or anything, right? But for some time, when Stay True was releasing a lot of music,
Lockdown.
Yeah.
When you were doing a lot of podcasts.
When I was doing a lot of podcasts. You guys were releasing a single or an EP every week, churning them out. And a part of me started feeling like, hey, it seems like a bit too much, Is it too much? Do we need so much music all the time? But also like, there's so many artists, And how have you kind of managed, especially artist expectation, artists who come into a label that's already doing well, that has pushed people like Bruce Loco, CEO is one of them, and here's a new artist who's licensing music to your label. How have you managed expectations of those artists with regards to where they might feel the label needs to take them?
I think it's a joint venture, to be honest, because I'm not a major. Majors generally sign all your rights. So they'll say, cool, I'm going to sign your management, your bookings, your publishing, your music, your everything. And then I think the expectations get really high. Then it's like, well, you own me, so what are you bringing to the party? Whereas I just sign their music. So if I'm going to sign a Sir LSG tune, I'm just signing your music, but I don't care about your bookings. I don't want a phone call from you or your management on a Saturday night. The CDJ doesn't work. I'm just interested in the music. And I've created this ecosystem where every artist gets the same sort of work from my side. And essentially, it's just me. And this is also a big reason why I had to move on from Selective Stars, because it is a lot for one person. But I think when I say that, it's like a JV or it's a collaboration, the guys that put in the work too as artists are generally the ones that win. You know what I mean? You look at someone like Sio, she knows how to be an artist, and she knows that she needs to post on Instagram, and she knows that she needs to create and get and create the Sio. And I can give her the same treatment as I would Chronicle Deep or FKA. Are we there? But I think every single person is different. So every single person's journey has really been a contribution of what they've put into. So we've been very fortunate that there's an audience for the music that I release, and we've been able to get some incredible artists at the end of the day. I mean, as I said, Chronicle, FKA, Mash, China Chameleon, Dawson, CO, the list goes on. And it's been the same. No one gets preferential treatment. Everyone just, there's the radio show really helped. Then there's the streams, and then there's the eventing. And sometimes guys get booked for a State True Sounds event and don't rock up. And then they ask me why their stuff's not selling. You know what I mean? So I really do feel that as an artist, you do need to contribute towards your own success. Whereas I've seen a lot of artists in the past, they sign a record and they just sit back and they're like, so what you doing? And it's like, well, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, we got to work this together. And I think the guys that have succeeded are the ones that understand that they need to be present and push their own agenda. And those are the guys that are winning.
And what are some of the tenets that you could see artists like CEO, someone like Chronicle Deep, that they have done on their own as artists that enabled them to kind of start soaring, as opposed to other artists who don't do it? Like, what are some of the things that a new artist, maybe not on Stay True, but they're releasing elsewhere, but you could see if they would apply similar things to their own careers, they will start moving a bit quicker?
I think taking opportunities and being present in the scene they want to be part of. So a lot of the time, guys want to be part of Stay True Sounds, but they don't come to deep house gigs. And I'm like, well, how are you going to be part of it if you're not getting yourself entrenched in it? So a lot of guys that are now on the label, I met at clubs. I met FKA Mash when I was working at Soul Candy. He told me the story. I can't remember it, but he was outside Soul Candy hustling, trying to meet people because he knew this was what he wanted to do with his life. And I had to sign I signed his school bag. He was still at school. But you could already see then that he knew what he had to do. He had to be outside Soul Candy to do these things. I think being present on social media is so important. And representing what you want to represent, you know what I mean? And showcasing your music and taking opportunities. There's so many gigs in South Africa. And if you just had to be in that space and be at that gig and finally get to meet the promoter, whether it be Shimza or myself or whoever, and put yourself there and say, cool, can I have a slot? DJ? These are all things that I've seen people do, especially part of Stay True Sounds. The guys that are winning are the ones that are constantly out there, and they've just got their hustle on. And I think if you have the vision, you'll put the work in and you'll see the rewards. But if you can't see where you want to be, and you can't take yourself out of your comfort zone and put yourself into the events that you want to be in, it's going to be short-lived.
Yeah, man. You mentioned something earlier about you being the lone person, essentially in the label, doing everything else, that needs to be done to get the label running. Will we see at some point in the future Stay True Sounds growing to a point where you are not the only person who's doing the stuff, where there is a bit of an expansion so that you can enable, to push and grow the label or even scale the label?
That's the plan. That's very much happening at the moment. That is the plan. I can't keep on driving the label just by myself. I mean, I've got CEO assists me with social media. Sanela, who's just dropped in there at the back, helps me with YouTube, with the streams, and he handles a few things. But essentially, like all the licensing, the artwork, the paper, the promotion, the planning, the scheduling, the ingesting, the everything is me. It's my everyday. But it doesn't make sense for me to keep up at this rate and I don't really see the label growing to where I would like it to grow. And I'm sure if you've been following my socials or my travels, my big thing is to take the label overseas and to grow this beautiful thing that we have in this country, which is actually so unique. Stay True Sounds and the music that we produce in South Africa is so unique to South Africa. Although we're so influenced by Europeans, this style of music that we're producing is very new overseas. And I mean, I've been traveling back and forth for the past year and a half, 2 years, and I can tell you firsthand that what we have is very special and exciting. And I want to be the guy to put my hand up and expose what's happening in this country overseas from a musical perspective.
And you've done that so many times, man, like with exporting so many artists from the label. But what have you seen internationally, especially with regards to South African music and the reception abroad?
We play slow. We play so slow. It's like, I think, everyone is caught in their bubble. So no one really knows until you go there. And I had an idea. I mean, I was born in Scotland. I've traveled plenty. But until you're actually at the club and you've got a crowd in front of you and someone is playing at 125 before you, and you take it to where you are comfortable or where you play every weekend in South Africa, do you realize how slow and soulful we like it in this country? And you'll realize we have so many international house guys coming to South Africa. We just had Rocco. We just had Frank Roger. Lars was here at Jazz as an institution. Jimster, Tilvan Sign. And these guys need to adapt to us when they come here. They're like, yo, we need to slow things down. I know Black Loops, he did a couple of gigs and he was at 125 and the guys were like, no. This is not what we do in South Africa. And I feel like I had to do the same when I travel, is I've needed to speed it up because I'm not going to change the whole of Europe just because I play 118 in South Africa. So the tempos are definitely a big shift for me between countries. And I think musically, we've got some really cool ambassadors that have been doing it for long enough, Black Coffee, Shimza and the likes, who are constantly pushing, overseas. And there are some connections between what Stay True Sounds does and the Afro sound that kind of links people. But I feel deep house and the music, the real music that Stay True Sounds represents, I've got a lot of work to do overseas because their music is quite driving and quite driven by bass, and we're very soulful. We like, at least in our space, we like keys and vocals and soft, and a club can go mad at 115 BPM to some soulful stuff, whereas overseas, that sort of tempo and that sort of style of music is almost seen as lounge or chill out. So there's a lot of work to do.
Restaurant music, right?
Say that again?
I'm saying restaurant music, 100%. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I guess I will ask this from Simon Dunmore later because I'm interested to find out the different aspects of eventing as well, because I was with a few friends of mine, Europeans, yesterday, and they were like, there's so many tables, like in almost every club, every spot in South Africa, too many tables and very little dance floor setup, And is it a thing worth thinking about? Just like, I'm trying to figure out, as an artist who is in South Africa but has aspirations to go abroad, is it a thing to think about the different energies, in terms of music, in terms of clubbing experience, when I make my music, how I present myself, if I do have the ambitions to perform abroad?
I think the perfect example of someone that's just experienced this and someone who's very stubborn and set in his ways is FKA Mash. And FKA Mash in South Africa produces between 110 and 114 BPM. That's his safe zone. You know what I mean? And I've said to FKA Mash, bro, like at some point you're going to have to lift the tempo because not everyone can DJ your music. No, that's me. That's what I do. Then, okay, you do you. And then he just went to guitar and he played 4 notes. And I was like, how was that? He's like, bro, I had to play at 122. And it just changed everything. And I think it's exactly that. Like, he can go there and do him, but it's going to last 5 or 10 minutes. And then he's going to have to play to the floor. Or he can still play the music he loves, but he's going to have to lift the energy. So I think it takes experience. I think it takes going a couple of times to figure it out. I'm still figuring it out, but there's definitely, you are definitely going to have to change the tempo if that's one thing. I think if you can find your tribe within different countries, you can still play the same records that you would play in this country. Fortunately, I've built up a community of people across the world through the streams that I do with Defected and with Stay True Sounds, where people expect me to play me, and I want to go there and rep what I do. I don't want to go there and play something I would never play. But the tempo thing, definitely, you're going to have to bear in mind, especially as soon as you leave South Africa, the tempo goes up at least 4 to 5 BPM.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's tough. I've seen also like guys coming here, like you had mentioned, and you know, when it's a 125 BPM in Soweto, it feels really fast. But it's like also the psychology. Once you listen to, it's like driving in a car. If you're driving 100 for a long period of time, by the time maybe you change to 60, it does feel extremely slow. You know, even if it's not really, there isn't much of a big difference. But I want to ask you about like taking it back home with Stay True. You also have done amazing work getting songs by CEO and I think China Chameleon as well on Netflix series Blood and Water. How did that come about, and how can someone else do it?
Sync deals are not something, it's something I've always dreamt of as a label owner, because that's kind of like the big paycheck. You know what I mean? We live in a streaming world, and depending on the rights that you sign from someone, a sync deal will probably pay the most. And I've always envisioned Stay True Sounds getting some good sync deals, because a lot of the music that we release to me is quite cinematic, and I feel like it would fit. I think I did a tweet years ago saying I need to get more local music on movies, and people totally agreed, especially because of the music that I sign. And fortunately, Blood and Water is a local production, and they were looking for local music, and they reached out. CEO just dropped a new album, and she was the face of Spotify and was landed up on some massive poster in New York. So the shine was on CEO.
Shout out CEO.
Shout out CEO. And China Chameleon and Chronicle Deep had done a song which actually just fit. And they approached us, and we'd given them quite a lot of options, but fortunately they took those two. And like I said, it's taken 6 years to build the label so that people like Netflix know who I am. You know, people like Apple. Apple reached out to me in the UK. They've got their own sync company. They've reached out to me. But I think it takes time to build something where people actually recognize you as a brand and understand what you represent. And it feels like I've got to that point with the label, and people know that they can get really good electronic, soulful music produced in South Africa from Stay True Sounds. So it's not something that happens overnight, or in my case it didn't. But yeah, it's more sync deals to come. Let's do that.
You mentioned money.
Yeah, man.
Lots of money.
Not lots of money. I mean, I think, you know, if you count what you'll get paid on a stream versus what you'll get paid on a sync deal, that's two different things. Shout out to Karabo. I think, yeah, there is, with sync deals, this is just for Africa. As soon as you start adding other countries in, you can start adding more zeros in. You know, I think the longer the term, you can start adding more zeros. But it's a new game for me that I'm hoping I can play. And more than anything, what I really want to do and what I'm achieving now with Stay True Sounds is I want artists to get paid properly. And I deal with a lot of artists that don't come from wealthy backgrounds. And we're finally in a place now where China Chameleon is streaming millions, and Chronicle Deep is doing really well, and CEO is getting massive posters up in Spotify. And that makes me genuinely happy. And we're getting sync deals where we can actually, I mean, I was coming from a record label where I've been paying for everything myself for 5 years, where now we're actually being able to pay A, myself, and B, make sure that artists can eat. And that's important for me. And I think the next steps for the label will hopefully ensure that people also, more artists that are deserved to be on Stay True Sounds can get their bag and live off the craft that they do.
Yeah. And I asked the money question because it's such an important one, man. You know, young kids, young aspiring producers do love this music thing, and you know, it can take a bit of time. You know, quite a number of years. It took you 6 years to only get, you know, something on Netflix, or you're able to get a sing deal. But I'm also trying to find out from you if starting a label. It's so easy to start a label nowadays, right? Because everybody could start a label, but doesn't necessarily mean that will translate in success. What are some of the few important things that you have done with Stay True, which you, looking back now, enabled the label to be what it is, that somebody could come on, kind of take on, you know, on their own, to say, okay, I'm going to start my own, say, LSG Records or whatever?
I think, fortunately, I went to the school of Soul Candy first, which really showed me how the business of music works. And I think you're right. Anyone can open a record label, and a lot of the guys that have come through Stay True Sounds now have their own label. Dawson has Impulsive, FKA Mash has his own label, and I think having your own label as an artist is cool, but having your own label and signing artists is a whole different ballgame. And I think, well, I don't think, I know, the one thing you need to ensure is that you've got good paperwork so that you have a good understanding between the artist and yourself as a business, and a vision. You know, when we released our first Stay True Sounds release, we had a Stay True Sounds event, because we're a dance label, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Yeah. You need to have an event to celebrate, you know, some of the music that you're releasing. And I think, again, I'm going to keep answering you with this. It's about vision. You know, when I started Stay True Sounds, it was a clear vision as to what I wanted it to be. So if you're going to start a label, you need vision, and B, that vision is going to come to your brand. You need to have a good brand. What is that going to look like? What is that going to represent? What are you representing? And then paperwork and pay your artists. I know a lot of people that have record labels that struggle with that side of the business. It's just paying artists, because it's not an easy task. But if you're running it by yourself, you need to learn how to do these things. And artists will stay with labels that pay them, and pay them on the money that they've made off the music that's been streamed or synced or whatever the case is. But I've seen a lot of labels, especially in this country, where someone starts, they have a brand, they start a label, but no one gets paid. And then it's not going to be a very long journey. So I think it's like with any business, you really need to look at it as a focus, a business, something you do every single day, and account.
Man, I know you've done so much for the local music scene, the electronic music scene specifically, and I just want to give you your flowers, man. Thank you for that. Let's give a shout to Kid Fonque. And I think now it's a good time to take some questions from the floor before we take a short break and then welcome Mr. Simon Danmo. So if you have any questions, raise your hand and you can come through.
How's it, Kid Fonque?
How you doing, bro?
I'm Coco. My name is Monde. Stage name, Phoenix the DJ, part of a group called Unpack Sound System. So what happens if I submit music at Stay True, but I get no response? Because typically most of us try our best.
That happens to a lot of people.
Exactly, because I've got every possible way to contact you. Your emails, I've got people that I talk to, and I'm like, do you have Kid Fonque's number? Can I at least have his number? I do have it on my phone, but I'll never contact you. So what happens?
Thank you.
It's out of respect, by the way. It's out of respect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think, you know, going back to what LSG and I were talking about is, at the moment, it's just a one-man show. I have a lot of things going on. I'm trying to release a lot of music. I'm trying to keep to a release schedule. I'm trying to promote. I'm trying to do events. I'm trying to be here and talk to you guys today. And the reality is that Stay True Sounds has never had a demo system, never. And fortunately, I've been able to never have to reach out for music. Music has just come to me, and there's a certain standard of music that it needs to connect with me before I can release it. And I need to be able to DJ it, and I want to be comfortable with that music. And I just get an immense amount of music. And if I had to spend every single day responding to everyone, I wouldn't be able to do all the other stuff. So that's where I'm at now. It could change in the future, but that's the honest answer of where I'm at. And if something is amazing, I will inevitably find it, because I have a crew of people that are around me all the time that are DJing just as much as me, listening to music just as much as me. And in our scene, when you go out, you're not going to be playing something that people know. You want to come on and play something that they don't know, because that's how you impress your crowd. And all the DJs that are in my camp are doing this every week. And when they hear someone, they let me know. And they also let me know for the radio show. So I know that I keep going back to MASH, but FKA MASH is constantly like, yo, have you heard this? Have you heard that? China Chameleon. When these guys feature people on their records and I sign them, I'm like, oh, who's Rocktonic? Now I know who Rocktonic is. You know what I mean? And then it grows. But for the 6 years that I've been doing State Tree Sounds, I've been in a very blessed position where none of it has been forced. Everything has been very organic, even down to finding Sio. I mean, Sio never reached out to me. I saw her at a gig. She was singing next to Charles Webster, and I was like, wow, this girl can sing. And we connected. So it's all been very much like that. But I think it also goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you want to be in a space, just be at the parties. You know what I mean? Be at a State Tree Sounds party. You being here says a lot. So I think just keep doing that and keep making music, and inevitably someone is going to hear you.
And I mean, we also spoke a bit about how easy it is to set up your own label. My advice also would be to not wait. Don't wait until you get signed to Stay True or to Gogo Music, Defected, whatever. If you can release your stuff, and so it has become so easy to do so. Yeah, they'll find you on the way, my man. Yeah,
perfect example. China Chameleon had China and Andy Records. There were 5 releases deep before I even knew who he was. And the only reason I found out who he was because he had started his own record label. So exactly what LSG says is don't wait for other people. If you feel like you're there, just start.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
how's it? LSG, everyone. My name is KG from Odd Experience. I just wanna give the tall man his flowers, guys. I remember our first single when you had the Soul Candy, Read My Lips. I heard,
bro, it's just all flooding back in me. Big tune. Shout out.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I remember when we reached back to you, I think it was after COVID and stuff, and we released that Smile and Wave EP, and we came back with Lomhlaba.
Which happens to be Vinny Da Vinci's favorite tune.
yeah, I did say. Yeah, man, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and everything that you've done for us. Also, I'm with Ed. And then, thank you very much, and keep on doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you so much.
You tried to sign some stuff from me on Soul Candy, right?
From you?
Yeah.
I was always trying to sign stuff from you.
But Soul Candy, the initial education that you got there, I'm sure played a major role into what you did with Stay True, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do Stay True without Soul Candy, without a doubt.
Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Hello.
So I'm Palesa, new in this whole music thing. And the reason why I'm here today is because there's a narrative that is being pushed that you either need to be born with the talent, you need to have a very strong musical background, but I'm not one of those. But I love music because I'm very selective of what I consume. So I want to be a producer. And where do I start? Because there's always, you need to start at the bottom, but I don't believe in that narrative. You can start in the middle, you can start at the top. It depends on what advice you get. So where do I start?
So is that what you really want to do, or do you just want to be part of the industry, or do you want to contribute? Because you sound a lot like me 20 years ago. I just wanted to be involved.
I want to be involved, not necessarily be in the front of the scenes, but because I'm very selective and very conscious of what I feed myself in terms of musical, I need to be in control of that, not necessarily be in control of.
So what do you do at the moment?
I'm in HR.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just hear a lot of me where I didn't really know where I fit in. My parents would buy me a guitar because I was into music, but I didn't know how to play. I couldn't be asked to sit and do guitar lessons. But I put myself in situations in the music industry that allowed me to find my path. And I remember for a year and a half, I was living in the UK and I tried to work at music stores there, and they said I couldn't work there until I had experience working in a music store, which was really confusing. So I came back to South Africa and I forced my way into a music store. And how I started my job was they wouldn't give me the job. They needed someone to watch a security guard downstairs. So I was the security for a security guard, but it was a way for me to start. And then I would go downstairs on my lunch break and sell so many Larry Heard CDs that they actually finally allowed me to be a salesperson. So I think what I'm trying to say to you is put yourself in spaces that will allow you to figure out where it is that you will be in the music industry. Because there's lots of paths, whether it be a producer. A producer is a lot of work. You can ask Sir LSG, it's a lot of work. You need to have time to sit in front of a laptop and learn how to create, produce, arrange, get vocalists. It's a lot. And I, for myself, found that out very quickly because I was like, I want to be a producer. It took me a very long time to become a producer. But I think my advice to you is to put yourself in spaces in the music industry where you can find out and feel what works for you. I hope that helps.
It does help, but then a follow-up question is, how do I position myself so that when I do put myself in those spaces, I don't come across as I just want to be famous, I just want to be in the music industry for the sake of popularity, but genuinely because I want to contribute to music and I want to do it for myself. Because there's a blurred line between I really want to do this and for someone who wants to do it because they've got other motives.
So what's your thing musically? What do you dig?
Shoot. I don't have a specific sound, but I'm very neo-soul. It really depends on how I woke up. Okay. This morning, I was...
So let's just take that, for example, neo-soul. So you should be going to gigs where Mello B. Jones and CO are performing every single weekend and hanging out with them and seeing where you fit in that space, whether it be management for them, whether it be a label owner for that sort of sound, whether it be... There's so many roles to play in the music industry. I think you just need to put yourself in that space. And it could be Amapiano, it could be soul, it could be deep house, it could be... But you need to just be part of it to figure it out.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Cool. And just to add on to that, my sister, I think someone... Oh, question. Cool.
Oh, I'm getting grilled.
No, but I was saying, just to add on to what Kid Fonque is saying, like, Kamo here, Kamo has been working for, raise your hand so she can come and ask you questions after this. Kamo has been working with Katsaitis Music and Irene Concepts. They do events, they are a music entity. And she's kind of like put herself in a position where she does everything, like whether it's working at the door, whether it's like doing a bit of management, anything that you can do just to be in that position, because that's how you learn. You get to learn other parts of the music industry that you might not know about from the outside. You know what I mean? But you guys can have a chat after this.
How's it? So just to add on from my perspective, I'm an artist and I've got a lot of side hustles similar to Kamo. I was supposed to be the door lady today, for example, and I'm a singer. And everybody knows I'm CEO, whatever that means. I also do social media, and I learned how to do copywriting for music specifically. So plug in. Even if you do like a social media blog like Denise Mars does, really cool social media content on the music she's interested in and defines, somewhat like a Selective Stars online is another place you can look at.
That was my 5 cents.
Sorry, Simon Dunmore from Defected Records. Just wanted to say hello. In answer to the girl's question, sometimes you have to start at the bottom. P. Diddy started in the post room at Universal Records and worked his way up. There's a book called The Powerhouse by CAA, which is about CAA agency, which is one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. Most of the top agents in the world start in the post room because the people that are higher up want to see that hunger, want to see that drive, want to see that you're committed. Once they see you're committed and they start to believe in you, hopefully doors will open. But you've got to show passion. And I think if you show passion at anything in life, then it's a really powerful force. People start to believe in you and they give you opportunity. But sometimes the doors don't open in the middle rung of life. You've got to start at the very beginning. My first job was in a dry cleaners. I worked in a dry cleaners, and then I worked in a department store called Marks and Spencer's. But I had a passion for music, and gradually people began to recognise that, and it opened opportunities and doors for me. So sometimes you have to start at the very beginning. But it's a good place to start, and you learn. But I wanted to ask a question, sorry.
Wise words from Simon.
So, sharing your taste in music, which is what you do as a DJ, as a label owner, is really important. People really appreciate being introduced to good music. So you start your label, you start as a DJ, and everyone wants to support the new kid, and everybody wants to support the new guy. And when you get some support, you start to grow. When you start to grow, you get more visible. And then the balance shifts. You get the love and appreciation, but you also get the criticism that comes with that because you're more visible. And we live in I don't know if you guys realise how fast the world is evolving. It's the pace at which people consume information is at an all-time low, high. It's an all-time low for me because I can't cope with it. But how do you shut out the noise? How do you shut out the things where people are coming for you, where they don't understand what your view is, what your objective is, but they just have an opinion on it and they don't hold back, they just throw punches. And it's really hard to avoid getting sucked into that. So how do you deal with that? Because I think it applies to a label owner or an artist or a producer, a footballer, a sport, anyone that's got visibility. They get some love, but they also get a lot of shit. And it's a big problem in the world right now.
I think it's an excellent question that you and I have discussed offline, but essentially the greater, the hater. And this is what happens. And I've seen, and I'm still on my journey, but for me, it's not a numbers game, but my numbers grow because I get the exposure. For me, it's a music thing. I don't really go onto social media to attack other people or to have an opinion on other things because everyone's got their hustle, regardless of what they're doing, and I can't be a judge of that. But to answer Simon's question, I think what keeps me sane from the noise and people's opinions is the fact that I know what I'm doing is true to me. As cliched as it sounds, it's my purpose. So I know that. So it doesn't matter what someone else thinks. I'm still going to succeed because I know I will. And sometimes you need to block someone. Sometimes you need to mute someone. And then they're just not in your feed anymore. And it gives you a little bit of peace. But I think going to bed every single night knowing that I am doing what is right for me and my soul and releasing and being an advocate for incredible artists that need someone like me gives me peace. And I think when you start questioning or start actually hearing what some people might have to say about you is when you doubt yourself. And I think you need to be quite confident in your vision so that you don't doubt yourself and allow people like that to get in and, the Twitter fingers come in and mess with your head. And it happens to everyone. I've had some people mess with my head, but then you just have to, realize that it's probably one dude, very lonely, sitting in a room who you've never seen at a gig once. You know what I mean? But has the biggest opinions about the work that you're doing, which actually doesn't make them valid. So, yeah, I think it's just knowing that what you're doing is 100% good with you will always help kind of cancel the noise of other people's nonsense.
And the noise doesn't stop greatness, to be honest. Like, if you dope, you dope, guys. Like, it's not gonna stop sales. It's not gonna stop people loving your music. If somebody doesn't like what you do, it's one person. And honestly, also you can't please everyone. That's another thing. And once you're comfortable with that, I think you'll be fine.
Hi everyone. Hey. My name is Low Squared. I've got a question for you, Kid. It's more pertaining radio. Are we gonna expect any show from you in the next coming maybe 3 or 4 years? Maybe Metro FM, Kai FM?
It's not stopping. I didn't give up radio to not be in a position of exposing music.
Okay.
There's stuff happening that I can't announce or talk about now, but trust me, you will still be hearing a lot of great music coming from my taste on many different platforms coming up. Like, I can't give you too much information, but look, it might not be national radio.
Okay.
But I mean, Stay True Sounds still exists. It does streams every single month. Yeah. I'm going to be DJing a set now, which we'll put up on YouTube. I do a show for Defected Broadcasting House once every month. That will still continue. And hopefully...
How about every Sundays?
They're not going to be on Sundays. I know there's a big void that is going to be missing on Sunday. Yeah. I know. But hopefully that will be fixed too. It may not be me, but I know 5FM are on the case to find someone that can fill that void for your Sundays.
Because earlier on, when you spoke about, before you went on to 5FM, there was this euphonic left this sound that was more commercial, and you came in with your Selective Stars. Do you feel like 5FM is going to change now? Are we going to lose ourselves? Are we not going to find any new talent every Sunday? Or do you feel like the person that's going to replace us or replace you is going to bring in that...
Unfortunately, this is not something I can answer. This is a 5FM. I've tapped out, and now this is for 5FM to sort out. But I have given in some really good suggestions for replacements.
The same thing that Fresh did with you.
Fresh, Sir LSG, there were a number of people that put their hand up for me. I put my hand up for a couple of people too. Okay. But what 5FM do with that, I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
But holding thumbs, your Sundays will be sorted. You seem quite strung out about your Sundays.
No. Because, trust, you don't understand what you do. Because I'm also like a DJ and a producer. And what you did do amongst us was create this competition to have dope sounds that no one knew. It's like having 200 followers and having a sound that it's like chronicle deep. You understand? So you gave us that hope in terms of a deep house, and not even also deep house, just music in general, music that's not playlisted. And the fact that you could also play music that is not playlisted, other DJs get fired for that.
That was always my thing when 5FM approached me. As exciting as it was at the time, I said to them, there's no ways I'm doing what you want me to do or what your expectations are. The only way I'm going to do it is if I do it my way. And my way is not to look at your social media numbers. My way is to listen to your music, and if it's dope, I'm going to play it. And it's so funny that you would say that, because, I would give people a whole mix to showcase their productions. And I would see their social media after, because I would tag them on Twitter, and the dude's got like 100 followers, which would blow my mind. And that's exactly what Selective Stars was there for. It wasn't about the hype. So it wasn't about numbers. It was about how good you were as a producer. Yeah. Whether they fill that void, I'm not 100% sure. But hopefully I've created a template for the next person to. But I will still be doing that from a stream or from a YouTube platform moving forward.